The Orient Fault Zone, or the Orient Fault, located off the coastline of Cuba. This is the area, or rather, this is the epicenter of both magnitude 5 plus and magnitude 6 plus earthquakes that took place on November 10, 2024, approximately 1 hour apart. Shaking experience. So, for the earthquake that took place at 10:50 a.m., and according to the earthquake unit of Jamaica, had a preliminary magnitude of 5.6. This earthquake, in terms of the shaking, I felt it for roughly 5 to 10 seconds. For the earthquake that took place at 11:50 a.m., the length of time for my experience shaking was approximately 20 to 30 seconds. My location at the time of the earthquake, both earthquakes, was in St. Andrew, Jamaica. How I describe what I felt in terms of the shaking is that it felt like I was being rocked from side to side. This was the case for both earthquakes. Now, using my prior experience of the magnitude 5.6 earthquake that took place in Jamaica in October 2023, as well as the magnitude 5 plus that took place in Jamaica earlier in 2024, the shaking I felt was not as rigid as those. In terms of my distance away from the epicenter of the November 10, 2024 earthquakes, I estimate it at approximately 200 kilometers. This is approximately the entire length from St. Thomas Moran Point to Westmoreland Negril Point. Now, relative to residents of Santiago de Cuba, as per the Jamaica Observer article, what I experience is very minor compared to them. As per the article, they would have experienced swaying poles, walls cracking, buildings falling, and people running out in the streets because of fright. Now, that gives greater indication as to a higher degree of intensity as it pertains to what these people would have been feeling, because they would have been closer to the epicenter relative to my location at the time of the earthquake. Now, it's worth mentioning that this earthquake occurrence is the closest to a magnitude 7 that the same fault zone would have released within the space of 4 to 5 years. So, as my research would have shown, and as you can see, the magnitude 7 plus earthquake that took place within the Orient Fault Zone happened on or in 2020. Why this mention is relevant or significant is because, as per the science, what it says is that this fault zone will produce or does produce a magnitude 6 plus with a recurrence interval of 4 to 5 years as we currently speak, just by using the reference of the 2020 as well as the November 10, 2024 earthquakes. So, for interest in both Cuba and Jamaica, the increased intensity, magnitude, as well as the relative increased frequency of moderate and above magnitude earthquakes within zones of the Gonave microplate and its boundaries should be a cause of attention, continuous attention. So, using the image as highlighted here, what it is that you can see is that there's a high degree of seismic intensity as well as seismic action that's taking place within certain fault zones, such as the Orient Fault Zone, the spreading center of the Cayman spreading center itself, the Enriquillo serpentrial fault zone, as well as the Wagton fault zones. All of these zones, which basically are areas that mark boundaries, northern, southern, southeastern, southwestern, etc., of the Gonave microplate, is showing a high level of seismicity. With this seismicity, we are experiencing areas that are uplifting as well as sinking. We're experiencing pressure release as well as pressure buildup. And we are also experiencing a degree of wait and see as regards to earthquakes that can occur on, let's just say, for example, the Jamaica mainland that will produce a magnitude 6 and over. In my view, the relative increased frequency of moderate magnitude earthquakes and above within this Gonave microplate boundary is presenting a degree of a challenge in terms of keeping up, in terms of to do research, as well as to prepare uh, from a disaster management point of view uh, towards ensuring that as best as is possible we can reduce the degree of vulnerability throughout the countries of Jamaica, Cuba, as well as Haiti as examples. To you listening, if you have interest within Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, Cayman, uh, it is very important that you do the work towards reducing your vulnerability, making sure that your buildings are up to international standard as regards to building code, making sure that you have a disaster management plan in place for earthquakes and associated hazards, um, and just making sure that as best as is possible, you are paying attention to the authorities as it pertains to research updates, etc., specific to what is happening in the area of earthquakes and geoscience as well as geo research.